What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Zach and Pat Show. I'm Zach.
I'm Pat.
This is the show about manhood, fatherhood, entrepreneurship, and the mentality it takes to be successful with those things. And we'll probably sprinkle in some helpful real estate advice too, because that's what Pat and I do. You know, guys, life can be tough. We can go through some things and struggle at times, but this is the show to let you know that you're not alone. So if you're anyone out there going through any of these things, this is the show for you.
All right, guys, let's talk about something we all need. High quality, comfortable, stylish clothing that actually holds up in real life. Whether you're grinding at work, hitting the gym, or just hanging out, the Normal brand has you covered. I've been rocking their gear, and let me tell you, it's not your average clothing line. They've nailed it perfect with the perfect blend of durability, comfort, style, whether it's a go-to rugged Henley, a hoodie, a button-down that doesn't make you feel like a stiff, the Normal brand is where it's at. The best part is you can support the show while upgrading your wardrobe. Just hit the link in the description below. Check out their collection. Trust me, once you try it, you'll wonder why you didn't do it sooner. The Normal brand. Made for real life, built to last. Now go check them out.
Shout out to our friends over at Captain Beard Co. Guys, if you are looking for beard care products, shampoo, conditioner, body wash, give Captain Beard Co. a try. They have this unbelievable beard butter, balm, oils, and then it smells amazing. Ladies, if you're looking for something for your men as a gift to help with their grooming, check them out. Also, if you guys are looking to just set the mood one night, candles, unbelievably smelling candles, made with all natural ingredients here locally to St. Louis. Give them a shot. Also, while you're there, use the promo code Zach and Pat for 10% off your purchase.
Hey there, guys. I really appreciate you checking out the Zach and Pat Show. If you can obviously tell, we are a newer podcast, but one way we're really trying to grow the show is trying to get up the amount of subscribers we have. So, if you're watching the show and you're getting something out of it, we'd really appreciate it if you could click that subscribe button. That would help us out a ton. Please click that button, and now back to the show.
We have a very special guest in studio here today. He's a fellow Adventure Unknown member, the founder and CEO of Recreate Solutions, the great and powerful Jeremy Bedenbaugh.
And thanks for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's exciting.
Yeah, well, for the people out there that don't know you, Jeremy, why don't you just kind of give them a little brief? Who is Jeremy?
Oh man, well, let me try to keep it condensed here.
We'll get into it.
But I'll start with my birth, then what happened all the way back. Now, I grew up in South Carolina. Moved here to go to grad school and grad college when I was 22. Thought I would kind of be passing through, and then ended up, getting a job here, getting married, having kids, all that kind of stuff. And now
You're stuck.
I'm a St. Louis homer now. I mean, I never understood the mentality at first. People move to St. Louis and everybody's like, they want to stay here. Or if they go away to college, it's like, how do I get back to, I grew up in Kirkwood or Western, and like they want to get right back to that place. And at first that was kind of confusing, but now I've fallen in love with St. Louis. I feel like it's one of the most underrated cities like in the country. So many different things there. But anyway, yeah, I have kind of a really diverse set of things in career. And I tell people the good thing is I get to monetize my ADD. Like once through my business now and having multiple clients in different industries and different sizes, things like that. But yeah, I've done everything from banking and finance to running a hedge fund to leading a tech startup to running a healthcare company to starting a couple of my own businesses like Recreate Solutions, which is what my current gig is right now, as well as a few other things. So
Sweet.
Well, I'm sorry. I was going to say, what is Recreate Solutions?
When is Recreate Solutions? Yeah, we're a boutique transformational company. We do coaching, consulting. I call them execution workshops because a lot of times you go to conferences or training, right? And it's like what you do. You sit here at this like thing and sit here and listen to somebody talk at you for 5 hours, 8 hours, however long the day is or whatever. I like to call them execution workshops because you come away with the product. We actually come in, if it's a strategy one, you're going to walk out with a 1-page strategy sheet and then a detailed plan of what that looks like. If we do it, the public speaking one, you're going to practice public speaking all day. You're going to be up and down. You're going to be interacting with people. It's going to be fun. You're going to actually practice and do it and walk away with something, and that kind of stuff. So I do a lot of executive coaching, everything from startups, entrepreneurs to Fortune 100 companies, professional sports teams, all kinds of things like that. So
That's awesome.
That's how we get to monetize ADD.
Yeah, that's awesome. Being someone that's been to some of those workshops, I mean, it can get kind of monotonous and boring to sit there listening. And that's cool that you guys actually bring people out, especially like the public speaking, and have them talk and actually incorporate the people that are there to do the things that you're working on. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really fun. I believe in like making an experience. You know what I mean? Like I want people to walk away going like, wow, this is the best thing that we did all year, the best stuff. And like one of the great stories, one of the last ones I did, it actually came out of because I was coaching the CRO in the organization. And she's like, man, I have a problem with one of my national sales directors, and she's an awesome person. She leads her team really well. She knows our stuff, but she's not good at presenting. She's not good at public speaking. It's like nails on a chalkboard. We're going to have to like probably let her go or whatever. But why don't we try this thing? So we did the workshop. It's one day offsite. Got a bunch of different cool spaces that I can access. And so that kind of helps the environment, right? Anyway, we do it. And like I said, like you're actually up doing it. We record you doing a 90-second pitch. I have all these different games you play that you have to come up with stuff on top of your head and all this kind of stuff. Anyway, but we also do a lot of the internal work, right? Because a lot of our public speaking is just getting the focus off yourself. You know, if there was like one phrase about being a public speaker, it's not about me. So as soon as you realize you're there to give something away, you're there, you have something of value and you're there to serve that person, then you're ready to go. Internal, you can manage that anxiety because you're not like, oh my gosh, how did my shirt look in my teeth and am I talking too fast? And, all those, you know, kinds of things is turning that. It's just like sales, anything else, right? You turn the focus to the client, to what are their pain points? What do they need? How am I going to serve them? And anyway, it was really cool because she engaged it, and then she had the biggest presentation of her year, like their big yearly thing or whatever. 2 weeks later, and the CRO called me. It was like, Jeremy, I can't believe it. Like she knocked out of the park. It's the best ever. Like, and so like that kind of stuff's what gets me up in the morning. So I want to be
Like a 2-week turnaround.
yeah. And so yeah, I just want it to be transformational, right? Like I said, it's an experience. So it's not just me going like, oh, here's the principles of public speaking. Here's the things you can do. Here's how you outline a talk. I mean, you get some of that content, but a lot of that I give you to like in like a resource or appendix or whatever that you can
Give that on a sheet. Yeah, a little handout, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'd force you out of the comfort zone, but we do it in a fun way. And anyway.
Oh, that's cool. That's been cool. That's really cool. Well, you know, I read the bio you sent us and everything, and you know, you went from growing up in a trailer to, you know, leading multi-million-dollar companies. What was the like mental shift to kind of break that cycle?
I'd say it happened over time. You know, one thing is, you know, when you have a childhood where you're sort of left on your own a lot, that, you know, you experience neglect and abuse and some things like that. Obviously, people respond differently, but for me, like part of what it created is just like, you have to get shit done. You have to figure it out. Like no one's coming. No one's going to help you. No one's going to help you figure out how to go to college, how to get a career, how to make money, how to do all those things. Now, one thing I did have is I learned from my dad, an incredible work ethic. Like never seen anybody work like this. I mean, outwork me today still. So he's pretty incredible in that. And, you know, he really taught me that part. But I just knew I had to kind of get out of that town and get to college and find out what things held, right? Like I look now, I didn't even know these kinds of jobs existed. I didn't know I could start my own business, and I didn't know I could, you know, be the head of a company and do these kinds of things. But one of the big shifts was, I think I kind of put this in there, is, you know, I'd been leading a large organization about 10 years ago. I'd gotten to the top, and then it should have been like the dream, right? Like my friends would call me and be like, oh man, how is it? This is so awesome. Like you getting to do this and this, and you're what we all dreamed of doing and that kind of thing. And every time they'd say that, I would just get silent or angry or bitter, because I was like, yeah, it actually really sucks. I got to the point where I was trying to do it all. I was trying to be the hero. I was trying to be Superman, because I learned in life, like, you are alone, right? It's not true. I had learned that lesson, And so it was like, all right, if there's this problem, I'm taking care of. If there's this, I got to do it. And so once you get to a certain size of organization, you can't lead like that anymore. And I have this thing called leadership archetypes where you kind of move through, and like one of them is warrior, kind of like when you're young and you're figuring out how to make ends meet and make $1 and whatever. And then the next one's kind of king queen, right? But the challenge is to stop or to pull back from doing all the work to actually leading other people in doing the work. And a lot of people can't make that transition. That's why that's why they kind of plateau or get stuck, in leadership. And what happened to me was I just completely burned out. I got to the point where I was so tired and angry and bitter. I got depressed.
No, which business venture was this?
This is back, again,
ADD. What do you think? It is? Yeah, I was just curious which one it was.
Yeah. So I'd become the senior pastor of a mega church, and we had all these different sites and nonprofits and organizations, things like that. So as I was doing that, internally, part of what I was doing is saying, this is everybody else's fault. It's my board's fault because they're expecting, requiring this much of me. And I remember, my wife saying at different points, I got to go do this. I got to do this. And she was like, who told you that? I was like, well, it's expected. Did the board ask you? Did they put that in your job description? And I was like, no, that's in my own head. That's in my personal wounded job description. And, but I didn't listen. I just kept pushing forward until I reached a point of burnout and just said, all right, I got to step down, step away, recover. Took like a year off, did, counseling, coaching, read like crazy, travel, hung out with my family, which was awesome. Kind of a great gift in that kind of way because my kids at the time were, I don't know, from 5 to 14 or something like that. So it was a cool period of time. But from that, that really rebuilt and it transformed me. And one day my wife looked at me and was like, babe, that's incredible. She's like, it's like you've been totally recreated. And as soon as she said, I was like, damn, that's going to be the name of my company because that's the gift I want to give to other people. I want them to know they're not alone. I want them to learn how to lead in healthy ways. I want them not to pay all the stupid tax that I have to pay. My dad told me, he used to tell me as a kid, he's like, son, seems like you only learn things 2 ways, the hard way and the stupid way. And why don't you adapt a different approach if you just listen a little bit? But I had to force my personality was just like, go, figure it out. And so that was one of the big mindset shifts. So like, for instance, as I was blaming everyone else and they're putting this on me and that thing, I realized I'd ask myself, and this is what I ask a lot of my clients right now, and sometimes it always makes them mad at first, right? But, they're complaining about this or the board, this, the sales team, that, whatever. And I always, at some point, listen for a while and say, okay, what are you doing to contribute to or create this situation that you claim you don't want? They're like, what? I'm not, it's not me. Yeah. And the truth is you think about systems theory where those relationships are symbiotic. And so I had to ask myself, what was I getting from doing all the things, right? Like nobody on my board said, we want you to burn yourself out. Now, do they have some responsibility in that? Yeah, of course, whatever. But I had to focus on that, but I had to focus on me. And I realized, what I was getting? I was getting praise. I was getting hailed as, Superman, uber competent. And, man, he can do finance and he can do operations and he can do preaching and he can do training and he can do conferences and he can do organization and all those kinds of things. So I was getting something. I was trading my health and my relationships with my family for that praise, that ability to be talked about as, you're the hero or whatever that thing is, right? And it's the exact opposite, as men of the kind of sacrifice. Like as men, I believe we call it the sacrifice. Sacrifice ourselves for the good of others, not sacrifice our families for our own egos. And so that breakdown was one of the mindset shifts. And then I began to take personal responsibility, extreme ownership, as I know you guys know about with the job code and things like that. I always talk about with leaders, like, hey, we have to learn our EBCs, which is like, no excuses, no blaming, no complaining, because, excuses, it's all of that's toxic, right? But like, excuses sacrifice your growth, complaining steals your opportunities, because as soon as I'm making excuses for myself, I'm just being defensive, and now I'm sacrificing opportunity to learn and grow instead of focusing on things. When I'm blaming other people, I'm sacrificing, the opportunity to learn something. And, I always would say to my teams and things like that, like, look, there has to be some responsibility. Sometimes you have to figure out like what went wrong or what happened. But when I sit here blaming and pointing fingers, and we're not doing sacrificial lambs because, hey, Zach messed up or didn't show up on whatever. It's like, no, what can we learn from this? That's the key to that. And one of my favorite definitions of leadership, and I have a lot, is the leader is the person in the room not blaming anyone, because he's the one going, all right, how do we take responsibility? How do we go? How do we learn from this? Right. And a little bit like the Mandela quote that is, he said, I never lose. I win or I learn.
Yeah.
And that's a mindset piece, right? So like when you have that mindset, hey, I didn't lose, I learned something here. It didn't go how I wanted it to go. Maybe it was a setback, a failure, whatever you want to call it. But you got to reframe it as a growth opportunity.
Oh, 100%. One of my favorite quotes is from Jocko. I forget which book it's in, but it says, as a leader, my action and inaction will always have some sort of outcome or consequence. And I mean, it's great that, it encompasses everything a leader. Like, yeah, everything that you're doing, whether it's good, could have a positive outcome, or if it's bad, it's going to have a bad consequence. And you have to take responsibility for that as a leader and own that and be able to either adjust on the fly, like we're talking about, and, or make those adjustments and be your like own self leader to make sure you're moving forward and moving your people in the right direction. Yeah, and that's him. Like I said, Jocko Willink is one of my favorite, for sure, way from speakers. So yeah,
he's also, I love his, everybody knows extreme ownership, but he has that field guide for leadership. I give it to people all the time. I love it because it's sort of like a reference, right? You can just look up a topic and be like, transition from peer to boss or whatever, right? He's got like 2 pages on it, and usually it's very practical kind of gold, So I love that. That's one of my favorites. Yeah, it's fun.
Well, you built the church up, and then you also mentioned in your bio the healthcare company you worked. You from 150 to 4,000 people, and you mentioned burnout. Is that one of those hidden costs for rapid growth, or is there some other hidden cost that comes with with rapid growth that people don't realize?
I don't think it has to be, and that's part of the point of like what I do now, right? Is like I want to help. Especially like when you're a startup and you're an entrepreneur, right? Because you're like trying to play the jack of all trades and do all those kinds of things, which is, good in a sense, but the point is not to get the most things done, is to get the right things done. And if you're not taking time to pull back and, even the busiest times, I would take 1 day a month completely offsite. Do not contact me unless it's an emergency. And we were growing like crazy. Like not only we were, like I said, we went from 150 employees to 4,000, 6 states to 41 states. We added like 4 new service lines. We added therapy and primary care and diagnostics labs and pharmacy and all those kind of things. So we're adding new lines and new stuff. And, my point was like, look, we've got to scale ourselves from a leadership standpoint, and we got to scale the culture faster than the company. Because if we don't, it'll implode on itself, at some point. So yeah, you're going to be working hard. You're going to be working your ass off, but you don't have to burn out to do it. And that comes from, I kind of have this belief that maybe a lot of people will find offensive, but, and I'm busy often or whatever, but like we live in this culture of busyness, right? It's almost like a badge of honor. Everybody is, how you doing? Oh, man, busy. And so I say like if you're busy, it's either because of laziness or cowardice. And the reason I say that is because, it's laziness that you have not taken time to set out what are the priorities and the needle movers. Theory of competitive advantage has shown that companies really do well or vastly better outperform whenever the executive and then, the CEO and the other executive actually say, what am I best at in this organization? Not what am I just really good at or can do, but what am I the best at and no one else can do like me? And they focus on that comparative advantage. And so like, that's one of those things, right? That gets you doing needle moving things, right? So I think you're busy because you're lazy because you haven't actually set out what are the priorities, what are the things that are going to move the needle for us and get us going. So I like to say, like, part of what I do is I take leaders from being busy to being productive. Because how did you get home some days, like, you're like exhausted, now work my ass off. I did all these things, whatever. Like, not accomplished anything. What did you really get done? And part of that is not doing that. And the other is just letting other people set your agenda, right? Like, how many leaders, and I'm guilty of it too sometimes, but I always ask guys, or whoever, I'm coaching, whatever, hey, what's the first thing you do in the morning? And I know, I've got a chance to listen to some other podcasts, and there were some great guys on here. What was the guy's name? I think it was Hakeem.
Oh yeah, that's good, right?
Yeah, he's awesome, right? And like, he just talks so much about like the more discipline and morning and evening routines and things like that. And yeah, I could agree with him more. I don't think I'm as good as him, but there was like, you're to your balls to the wall, man. Like, I
want to hear you rap like him, dude.
I could do Ice Ice Baby. I could do.
Go to that thing that he spit off at the very end was like, I mean, me and Pat were over here. It's like,
it was a great. Yeah, I backed it up and like slowed it down, like, because I listen to usually like podcasts on a little festival, but slow it, like, damn, it's great. Yeah, every line
like flow, and it was like almost like slam poetry or something. It was so cool. And if you follow him on social media, he puts out stuff like that like almost every day. Yeah, like but that one particularly like went really viral for him. So I think he just has it like memorized now and like something he says all the time, I think. But it was awesome.
Yeah, you should have had him start and end with that. Yeah, like that was a hook. That would have been a hook right from the beginning.
Well, yeah, we clipped that up, and that's like one of our most watched videos on like our Instagrams and stuff. For sure, like,
I mean, that was 3-4 weeks ago, and
I'm sure people are still Valentine's Day. People are still sharing it and like liking it and sharing it, and I still get notifications for that all the time.
Well, if I do one for you, it'll probably be one of your most watched as well, but for the very opposite reason. Sir, he's like, hey, check out this terrible white guy trying to. But yeah, that when I ask people, they're like, well, I wake up and I pick my phone up and start scrolling emails or scroll social media or whatever, right? And it's like you're automatically letting yourself get drawn into the drama and the priorities of everyone else and letting their emergency become your urgency instead of setting out what is it that I am called to do today? How am I going to show up in this meeting, in this place for this thing? And it didn't take a lot of time. It's not like you got to sit there for 2 hours and do all that. It takes, 10 minutes. But when you jump on, there's famously like Napoleon used to wait 3 weeks before he would read his correspondence, right? You're kind of crazy. He's the head of a state. He's like in war all the time, military general, right? People are like his generals or whatever, lieutenants sending letters. He wouldn't read them for 3 weeks. And the reason was because he said because after 3 weeks, either they've figured out how to take care of it, it's resolved itself, or it'll be one of the very few things that's important enough for me to have to actually take care of, right? And we get in. Yeah, I talk about that same repetitive cycle with the emails. People are like, some of the emails, and I was like, but you're feeding the beast because every time you jump on and respond because we train people how to treat us, right? So if every time people email me, I'm responding to them with it. And maybe you have a job, maybe that's your thing that you want to do that's okay. But most people are like, this is killing me.
Yeah, I should 10 times a day.
Yep.
Yeah. Roll that first log.
Do you do the Ash and 3, 2, 1, 0 factor or whatever? What's that? Cash and time is
incredible now. So
you already did it yourself. You didn't need Mel Robbins or whoever it was to teach you how to do it. So yeah, you do it 3 times a day. Actually, I remember out for 20 minutes, and one something, you get your email 0. I don't. I'll look it up again, but I thought maybe you were on that model.
Yeah, no, I mean, I check it in the morning when I first log in to see if there's anything that came in overnight, and then I'll do it again at lunch, and then again before. Make sure I close it out at the end of the day, that there's nothing left at the end of the day, that I've gotten to everything that needs to be got, that I need to get to. I get so many fucking emails that it's insane. I mean, I'm getting anywhere from 3 to 6 emails a day.
Right. So how do you handle that?
Exactly. Can't.
Exactly. And the more, like I said, but the more you like, if you're like respond, people go, oh, what, you had shit done. Yeah, I'm just sitting here in the edge of your email, doubles it up. And so one of the things that I did too, like, I think you have to communicate about it. Cause like one of the things I did with, my people when I was at Empower Me, right? Cause big companies growing. I was like, same thing. I could never get to this. So, but it was a big email culture. But I said to all my people from onboarding to on, I said, listen, if you need something from me, if it's urgent, if it's something you need to hear back from me within, any period of time, you call me or text me, and I promise I will answer. I'll get back to you within an hour. But if you email me, I assume it's not important. It might be a week. It might be 2 weeks. Because I'm not going to be sit there glued to my email all day because I'm not getting anything done.
Yeah, I'm the same way, man. I had something I tell my clients, like when I start working with them, I'm like, hey, best way to get a hold of me, call me, text me. Because if you email me, it's going to get lost in the shuffle.
Or almost scared to text me like you email me.
Yeah. Yeah. I said you can't do that. Like if it's an email that you need to be like, look, just want me a text and say, hey man, can you check out your email this? Yeah.
Like, hey, I sent you something.
And I get that. And I get that, like, with email, you want to have it written down and that where like things can get misconstrued through speaking, but like, and have an actual documented form of communication, which is fine. But text me when you know that
yeah.
So with all those, you just end up ignoring most of them.
So So most of it's a lot of just like operations shit that I don't really like. It's just like, oh, this one got pushed into underwriting, or oh, this one's in processing, or we just ordered the appraisal, or the appraisal came in. Like I'll go through and just quickly go through those. And plus I get, a ton of, the solicitors in terms of like, hey, this job opportunity is available. We're interested in you. Would you be interested in that? And like stuff like that, I'll just sign back, hey, I'm happy where I'm at. I'll keep you in mind. Like just shoot off a quick response and just leave it at that. But, I go through and look for things that come from real estate agents and clients. That's it. Anything else, I'm clicking through that's not really relevant that, because if it was important, they would have reached out to me and told me that. But clients, because usually they're texting, they'll email me documents or something like that, or, hey, I just sent a contract over to you and I'll have to go in and do that. But most of the time, the agents that I work with, clients that I work with, they know that if they need to get in touch with me, call me or text me. That's the first thing I tell them. There's like, hey, like I'll get leads that come through and, it might be between that time where it's lunch and before I end the day, and it's a couple hours before I respond. And at that point, like I'll get the email and just say, hey, here's my cell phone number. This is the best way to communicate with me. I am way quicker at responding to that than I am emails because I check it 3 times a day. Let's make communication through text and phone calls. And if you absolutely want to send an email, go for it. Text me and let me know
Yep. So, and I think that goes to the larger principles of communicating your values as a leader. You need to know what your values are and communicate those to your people. Like, if you have a value of, man, respect means showing up on time to meetings, being prepared, having read the thing, whatever, but you never communicate that to people. Like I'm like, John doesn't respect me. He shows up 3 minutes late to every meeting. But is that the culture here? Have you ever said this is a value and this is what I expect of you? Well, no, he should just know that. Well, these are your values, right? So like you got to communicate. Here's my value around communication. Like here's how you can best reach me, those kinds of things. And then, the other principle being that you are in charge of setting your priorities, not everybody else. And then what we want to do is then blame other people, right? But what we're really doing is, and so it's like until we deal with our ego, we can't really lead. Until we can only really lead people to the extent we're willing to disappoint people. I don't mean like that's the goal. Like how many people that I disappoint today or tick off? I used to joke when I was at Empower Me Healthcare, right? So it was like, I don't know, 85% of the company were females. So I had like 9 direct reports, 8 of them were women. And somebody asked me one day, like at the gym or something, like, hey, what do you do? And I was like, for a living. I was like, I disappoint women all day. Like I had a wife, a daughter, and like 8 direct reports. some IPs always mad at me. But you know, like the idea is like some people, they just can't do it because they don't want people to be disappointed in their lack of response time. They want to be thought of like this, this, and this. And if they can't handle that set of, hey, people are going to be disappointed at times in your leadership, or in the direction you go or the way that you respond, then you're not going to go to move anywhere, because you're always going to be caught between what makes your image and what gets people, you know, on your side and playing that political game. And I just think that's kind of bullshit.
Yeah. Wow. Well, it's kind of on topic, I suppose, but you say people don't pay you for advice or accountability; they pay you for freedom. What does freedom look like for most people, and why do most people not have it?
That's a good question. Yeah, and it's not to say that there is no advice, but like I said before, I'm interested in like real transformation. And so for me, like I had a client the other day that, you know, we've been working like 9 months together, and he goes, man, I just got to tell you, like, this has been transformative. Like my self-awareness, my EQ is up. Like my leadership is better. It's more focused. Our team is in a better place it's ever been. Our profits are up 25%. Like it's incredible. He's like, but also totally unexpected that my relationship with my wife and my kids is better than it's ever been. Because, you know, generally, like, I mean, you know, we're the same people. So the stuff that's hanging us up at work or at leadership or whatever it is the stuff that's sabotaging us at home and our relationships. And those kinds of things, like lack of emotional intelligence, lack of self-awareness, lack of being willing to deal with, you know, like for me, it took me forever to come to terms with my anger. And I remember, like my wife said to me one day, like probably around that time, like 9-10 years ago. And it was such a shock because like I have always been, you know, an adventurer, fun lover, people. Like I'm making up games with the kids. I'm, you know, wanting to travel. I'm always playing games, competitions, sports, whatever, right? Like, fun. And, you know, she said to me, I don't think you realize how hard it is to live for the last 6 months with an angry man. And I was like, really defensive. I was like, what do you mean? Because like, I don't have outbursts. I don't yell and scream. I don't throw stuff. I don't, you know, go nuts on the kids. You know what I mean? So it's like, I wasn't externally blowing up on people, humiliating employees or crazy stuff like that. Right. But it was all inside, just like simmering in that, like that back shelf of anger that all men have. I think sometimes we just like try to stuff stuff back on there. Right. And, you know, for me, having to come to terms with, wow, where does that anger all driven from? And generally that's like a secondary level, but there's underneath that was a lot of grief, over past loss and abuse. It was shame. It was all those things, right? That's like, especially for men, anger is way easier than vulnerability. And I think that's one of the other mistakes we make as men or as leaders, is that we confuse vulnerability with weakness. They're not the same thing.
No, it actually leads to strength.
It really does. But it's scary as hell. Oh, for sure. Because it doesn't feel like that. Right, like that. Yeah. Because we're just built to hold on and protect that. Right. And we don't want to let that down and, you know, frankly, we know, I mean, especially with social media, it's way easier to manage my image than it is to manage my actual life.
Oh yeah.
And so, you know, and this is a big point, you know, Hakeem made over and over again, right? It's like managing ourselves, choosing yourself. And I always say the hardest form of leadership is self-leadership. The hardest person in the world for me to lead is me. Leadership is about influence. Can I influence myself? There's a proverb that says, greater is a man with self-control than he who can take 10 cities, right? So like imagine a general going out and just conquering cities, and what a great leader. But he's like, the greater thing is the man who is in charge of himself. And so, that's a long meandering way, but part of what like leads to that freedom is, one, I dig really deep with people and find like what I call those emotional signatures. Those things that drive you, right? It's like, because, you were always told that you were dumb or that you wouldn't succeed, or you were the youngest of five and always scrapping to be, prove your part, one of the big boys or whatever. And those are the kind of things that make people, they're not aware of, and their wounds, and they're driving people to make business decisions. And I had a business partner, once, and unfortunately he was the majority owner, and he was consumed with proving to his former partner, who had pushed him out of the business, that he could build something bigger than him. And so then he just forced all this extra growth that wasn't good growth. It was like, negative profit kind of stuff. And he forced it all because he's trying to prove something to somebody else rather than understanding who he is, what his values are, what success is to him, and living that out truly.
Yeah, I mean, it's good to have a chip on your shoulder and want to be able to prove something wrong, but you got to do it in a healthy way.
Right. And, your ultimate goal can't be, it's like you want the motivation, right? Like the famous, like Michael Jordan used to always make everything personal, he'd come up with it. Like that dude was talking about my mom, like that might have never happened, but like he would get in his head, and so like you said, like that is really good. That is motivating, but you have to know what it is to drive you, and then know where you're trying to go. Is like just getting to, I have a business now bigger than my former partners. Okay.
Yeah.
What did that cost you? What does that mean? What did that make you? Because you're never going to be made happy by what you get, only by who you become. And I know, like, I think it was Jim Rohn that used to say, go out and make $1 million, not to get the $1 million, but because of who it will make you, the man or the woman, the person it will make you into by accomplishing that. And that's the thing that will be, more valuable than anything. And so I think, in a roundabout way, I think I kind of answered. Yeah, like kind of what gets people to that freedom is what I call self-differentiated leadership. It's like, I know where I end and you begin. It can be swirling around me, anxiety, everywhere, but I'm staying the course. I know who I am, where we're going, and I can handle and manage those things. And I'm moving the needle, not just, making everybody happy because I'm really fast at responding to the email, or I'm, always seen as the so-and-so guy, whatever.
Well, you just mentioned, talking about self-leadership. One of a lot of people fail at this. Do you think it has to do with ego?
What do you mean?
So in terms of one of the hard parts of leadership is self-leadership, putting yourself first. And we see quite a few people that you would think would be good leaders and all that, but they have a hard time, it doesn't always work out. So, why are people failing at leading? Is it an ego aspect? Is it something else? Like, what is it that's causing these leaders to fail?
There's multi-factors, right? But I do think the two biggest ones are ego and woundedness. And they gotta kind of go hand in hand a little bit, right? Like I talk about my burnout situation, right? And all that kind of stuff. And a lot of that was because of both my ego and my wounds, right? Like I had something to prove. I had an ego that was like, I need to have this. And it's not conscious, right? You're not sitting there at home going like, man, who am I going to get to stroke my ego today? Like no one's like sitting there. Well, probably some, psychopath doing that, but it's all
Thinking that everything, or everything, right?
Yeah, yeah, and we want people to recognize and know that. So like I remember so many times back in those days, like I'd get asked a question by the executive team or by a board member or by somebody else or whatever, and I would not know the answer, but I would give them an answer with certainty, because you better, like, if you answer something with like authority and certainty and confidence in your voice or whatever, 99% of people will go, yeah,
Oh yeah, this guy knows.
yeah, totally. I could be like, man, did you know that 75% of people in the United States are, well, whatever. If I said it really confidently, you'd be like, oh, sure. Oh, wow, I didn't know that. Yeah, I'm going to change my thing on that. And I remember so many times where, they'd say like some question, what's our EBITDA for projection for next quarter or whatever. And, I'd be like 3.62 million. And they'd be like, oh, that's good. Thanks for letting me know or whatever. And I'd be like, oh shit, I got to go after them. I'm like making a note to myself, find out the answer, come back, but because I felt like I needed to be the smart person in the room. I need to be the answer man. And, like we all know, like we know now, like the best leaders, I mean, you got to be freaking competent. Like you can't be
Honest too.
yeah, but you got to be honest. And like nobody can know everything. And so, and when you do that, people actually trust and respect you more. You know what I mean? Like if we sat and talked long enough and we covered enough subjects, right? And I knew, and I was an expert on every single one of them. You guys go, this guy's full of bullshit. Nobody knows everything about, he's talking about, Russian history, and he's a Civil War expert, and he's a business leader expert. Like, what I mean? Like you can bullshit that kind of stuff, but that's coming out of ego, coming out of woundedness. And, almost all of our stress and anxiety and things like that come from this lie or belief, a false belief that we need something that we don't really need. Like that I need your approval. I need to be considered smart. I need to be called this, whatever. This much money, whatever it is. And once you realize that it's the attachment to those beliefs that causes suffering and anxiety, and the fact that you actually don't need, like, yeah, it's great if we like each other. I'd like for you to have some approval, but I don't need that. It's not what my core is. It's not going to make me, and then the truth is, like, you can never have enough of what you don't really need. So, if I get it, I'm just going to want more of it, and I want more people. And it's like an addiction. And so I think, yeah, really dealing with when people deal with their egos and their wounds and how those things are driving them, then they're able to lead from a healthy place. Then, like we'd always say, hey, we take our mission really seriously, but we don't take ourselves very seriously. And I found it really important for me to as a leader, have self-deprecating humor and to give people a permission structure to make fun of me, joke around with me. I talk about the ADD and stuff like that. Like we'd get into meetings at times and, ideas occur to me, right? And I just start talking and going down a rabbit trail. What if we did this? It'd be amazing if we could, set this up and have a whole system running over here and be able to like feed this back in. And, we have a meeting, and I think, on the agenda, we decided this, and this. We get back a week, 2 weeks later, executive team meeting, and I'm like, hey, where are we on this thing? Oh, we were doing this other, like this rabbit trail. They just started scurrying around doing shit. And I'm like, at first I'm mad at them going like, no, I told you to do this. And then I realized like that was my fault, because you got to understand power dynamics, right? So when the boss says, he's just thinking off I'm just riffing.
Yeah.
But they're going, okay, he wants that thing to happen. Then they're running around doing it. And so, I was like, I realized, hey, this is my fault. And I was like, guys, I'm a rabbit trail guy. I am, I get excited. I take this down thing. I was like, so I gave the permission. I had like a little 5-point scale. Like 5 was, hey, this is really serious. We should be doing this yesterday. And 1 was, Jeremy just needs a friend, and, send him away. And so like they had permission to stop the meeting and be like, hey man, where is this? Is this once an hour or 4? Is this a 5? Yeah. What do we got here? Yeah. And then, I'm like, yeah, probably my idea, to run clinics out of, Southwest airline planes in the air is going to be a good idea or something. I don't care, whatever that they, but then they could make fun of me. They could get clarity. And it was an inside, if it wasn't me, it was an inside joke. Right. Versus like, no, I'm the authority. I'm the guy, I'm Moses from on high, bringing down the 10 commandments. That doesn't create buy-in. That just creates fear and, CYA and like real political type bullshit that are threatened.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I know for both of us, I mean, what we do to keep our ego in check. I mean, I'm going to get back into it here soon with jujitsu. I mean, there's nothing bigger than an ego check than stepping on a mat with somebody that could beat your ass, and handedly. I mean, I got my ego put in check real quick. Just bring brand new to it, like going up against him. You put us next to each other, standing up next to side by side. I mean, I might have a foot on him, but this dude throws me around like it's nothing. And like, it's just, talk about an ego check. That's one of them. But also for me, like, I just like to ask questions. I mean, I ask a lot of questions just, in conversations. things like that, just to like let people know like, hey, I'm willing to learn. I'm not willing to put my views and all that onto you. I just want to listen to what you have to say and see what you know. And then we can talk from there.
Yeah, one of the best pieces of advice that I was given, like when I first got into the real estate business, the guy who was mentoring me and one of my best friends, he was like, man, it's okay to say when someone asks you something and you don't know, it's okay to say, I don't know, but say, I don't know, but I'll find it out. I'm going to find out, and that's something that I've held with me this whole, through my whole business so far over the last 6 years. And, I still come across stuff all the time. Hey, man, I don't know. I'll figure it out though. And, most people are going to be receptive to that because people don't expect you to know. Well, most people don't expect you to know everything. And if you're willing to go do the homework and figure it out and come back to them in a timely manner with a good answer, that they prefer that over you just bullshitting them.
Totally. Yeah. But it's only like, I don't know and I don't care is,
yeah,
that's stupid. But I don't know, but I will find out. That's like honest initiative. And like, yeah, like it says, like that makes people respect you more. Right. And I'm like you too. I think one of those underrated superpowers is curiosity. Being curious about, human being, we're like endlessly fascinating and complicated, right? Like you can be in a relationship with someone for 20 years and just still learning new things about them, all the time. But the other thing is like, it's almost impossible to be curious and anxious at the same time. And so like, I always, when I'm in a good, healthy place, like, if I'm getting into like a disagreement with my wife or whatever, I'm going, all right, if once I'm to the point I can't be curious anymore, that I'm just listening to respond. I'm just, working my next thing up. Then we either need to take a break or I gotta shift, right? Then I'll even look at my heart rate monitor sometimes, because a great indicator of like my heart rate's above 85 in this conversation. That means, you're losing blood flow to your prefrontal cortex, right? You're in your amygdala. So like you're starting to have an anxious response and a defensive response. Like, yep. And, it's probably not going to go well, but that's like, a lot of us have, we rings or Apple Watches, Fitbits, whatever, right? You just like, that's a great little thing, like a little hack. Just like if you're getting the heated discussion with somebody at work or your spouse or whatever, just like take a look, your resting heart rate 60 and you're in there going, it's like 85. You're on that threshold. You're going like, it's not going to go well from there. And hey, we should just take a break. And like one thing, like my wife and I've gotten much better at, rather than just being like, well, F this, I'll talk to you another time. Just being like, hey, I love you. I'm committed to you. I'm just not at a good place to like have productive conversation because I just need a few minutes. And actually she's the one that does that, not me. I'm like, whoa, force it to the end. Until you see how right I hear this. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm going to keep explaining and new analogies and raising my, intensity level until you agree with me. But, I've learned that's not great leadership or great relational, wisdom.
Yeah. Have you mentioned curious? Have you ever watched Ted Lasso? Oh yeah. Yeah. The clip where he's playing, darts with the owner. They talking. That's one of my favorite scenes of all time. It's incredible. Talking about be curious, not judgmental.
Dude, I played that in the morning stand-up meeting for our corporate scene one day, just because that very reason, right? And he's like, you were arrogant, like you never bothered to ask, like you just assumed I was dish ready dark way, right?
Yeah,
you didn't ask if I went every Sunday and played darts with my dad at the local bar from the time I was 6 until I was 15. It's like bullseye. Great clip.
I love what you said too, though, about like jujitsu, because I think I always try to think about like intentional adversity, and then I think it's good. We talk a lot about masculinity on the podcast, right? Like, yeah, it's good for every man to get his ass kicked at some point.
Oh, sure, totally agree.
And hopefully, like, doesn't mean like really good,
really, but be humble. Do you realize that you're not the toughest guy in the world?
Yeah, there's always. And if you think about it, that's part of the problem is like we feel threat, like there's always going to be somebody smarter, somebody better looking. And, what I've tried to get good at over time is going, those are people I want to make friends with, advocate, because what our mentor said to me once, he was like, look, you can fall in love in life with the things that you know or the things that you don't know. And there's a whole hell of a lot more in the world that you don't know, and it's much more interesting, right? But if you're just stuck there, you never progress, you never grow. And I think that's the big thing with men. You talked about ego is, you can't learn without first being ignorant, right? Like I can't learn jujitsu until, I get the shit kicked out of me, a few times.
Sure.
And
You realize that the stuff you think works does not work, or whatever. Even though,
right. And I talked to so many people like that. Like I got a good friend, he wanted to do the same thing, and he's even bigger than you. You're a big guy. And he's like, dude, I got in there, and he, great physical shape, CrossFit all the time, all that kind of stuff. Right. And he's like, dude, this little 5'9" guy was like tossing my ass all over this mat. And I think that's awesome. Like one of the things you always talk about the Navy SEALs and stuff like that. And, one of the unique, you've probably heard 100 interviews, right? A lot of them, they say the same things, and they're all great. But, one of the only times I heard a guy say this is somebody asked him, hey, what makes the U.S. Special Forces, the U.S., Navy SEALs and Delta Force, like the elite of the elite around the world? Like plenty of other countries have special forces, but they're not, what's that?
They're not that level.
Yeah, they're not at that level. He's like, why do we have the most elite in the world? Like, what's different about that? And he goes, all the other special forces train to perfection. We train to failure. Because he's like, SEAL training, every single one of us will fail, get made fun of, right? Like you have to pass out underwater. You're going to, at some point, whatever the requirement is, you're going to fall down and not be able to get up right now, whatever it is. Like we train to fail. They are going to push you until you actually fail, and they want to see how you respond. And I thought about that. Like I don't know, years ago, I used to be the head of this like regional thing, and I was responsible for examining everybody. You had to have this pass all these tests and have the broad base of knowledge or whatever. And then once you pass all that, then you had like in front of everybody kind of a summary like exam. And so I'd be up there and I'd be asking questions, and they'd have to answer on the fly, right? And for me, for years in that point was like, kind of lead them along, make sure they get all the answers right and they look good in front of the floor. It makes me look good because I'm supposed to be the one shepherd of the process. And like for me, I was like, no, I'm going to ask them questions like get them to get a wrong answer. Not because I want them to get it wrong, because I want to see how they respond when they are wrong in front. Like nobody knows that, like, you know what I mean? Like I'm eventually going to ask you something you don't know. And are they going to cover it up? Are they going to get angry? Are they gonna be like, man, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't remember that. I don't remember that one. I'm gonna need help with that, whatever. And how are they gonna handle that? That tells me a lot more about like their character and their leadership than, did they memorize all the answers correctly?
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Well, so you say you can actually change the past. What can you explain what you mean by that?
Yeah, I've been in the time machine. It's time to get kooky and do it. Yeah. Sign me up. We're going conspiracy theory time. Yeah, let's do it. What other conspiracy theories are we going to do? No. Yeah. So I like to say, people say you can't change the past, but you actually can. And of course, I don't mean like go back in time. You can't change the metaphysical reality, right? I can't make Green Bay lose the first Super Bowl or something like that. So you can't change what happened, but you can change what it needs. You don't get to choose. We don't get to choose most of the shit that happens to us, but we do get to choose what labels we apply to it. We get to choose what it means. We get to choose the interpretive framework that we view it from. Like, even last night we were having a conversation. It was like, my brother and I grew up in the same household, in the same town with the same parent, right? Like, and his life is kind of been a disaster, right? And so like, why is that, right? And I don't attribute that to myself. I mean, I attribute that to like the grace of God. I don't know why all of that happened that way. Obviously, like there's some things I did, but in a lot of ways, this makes me kind of, grateful to, for me, to God about like feeling like he rescued me from that, but whatever. But the issue is, if you've ever been a victim, once you've been a victim, the easiest thing in the world is to keep on being a victim and to adopt that victim consciousness. And at some point, it's true that in my past, I was a victim, of different types of things, but I don't have to keep being a victim. And now I look at those things and I don't say, you never say that evil is good, right? You never go like, that was a good thing, but great things came of that. And so I say, like, the way I frame it is like, man, the things in life that gave me initiative, the ability just to figure something out when I know nothing about it, the toughness, the perseverance, things like that, like that came out of all that suffering. And so you can go back and change the past because you can change what it means to you and how it's affecting your present, right? Because the crazy thing about the past is stay in the past, right? It's always like bubbling back up somewhere. And so, our mental mindset framing is one of the biggest things, right? So when this happens, when something happens to you, do you believe, one of the questions I ask like clients onboarding, I have like a questionnaire they fill out so I can kind of get to know a little bit about them, whatever. It's like, do you believe that life happens to you or for you? Do you believe life happens to you or by you? In other words, I spent a lot of part of my life just thinking like, I'm a passive, receptor. Things just happen to be whatever. It's like, no. One, I believe light is happening for me. So even when the business deal falls through, when I look like an idiot in front of somebody, when someone gets a terrible disease, whatever, like, it's like, if you change, I would say, if you don't like the answer you're getting to anything, change the question. Because the questions we ask are what creates what we see. And what we see is our focus. And whatever you focus on expands, right? Like, how it is, like, I don't know, what's the latest car you guys have bought?
Man, I bought a car in 8 years, year.
Yeah. And had you ever had a Grand Cherokee before? Mm-hmm. And so when you bought that Cherokee, did you suddenly start seeing them everywhere?
No.
Yeah. Reticular activity.
That's exactly what it is, right?
Been talking to my wife about this because I've been talking about buying a Tesla, and I just saw another one. It's like literally I've been texting her like the last 5 days about it. Like, oh, saw the exact one I want right there. Like I took a picture of the one in the parking lot the other day. I was like, oh, look, is that color everything I want? It's like they're just showing up.
Totally, right. And it's like, it's not because they suddenly sold a bunch that day, right?
No,
it's because your mind is a filter. Like we can take in less than 1% of the visual and other data that's coming in at us. And so what we actually see, I don't know, I can't remember who said that, but, we don't see the world as it is, but as we are, right? So the world presents itself to us in light of the values and goals and questions that we have. And so when you are looking, for a Jeep Grand Cherokee, or when that filter's been triggered in your mind, they were always there. You never saw them because your mind's just filtering those out. It doesn't have time for that. But now it's seeing them everywhere. And so when you look at the world, not as a place of scarcity, but as a place of abundance, hey, there's opportunities everywhere. There are people everywhere that are willing to help, whatever. All of a sudden, what you start seeing? People willing to help, opportunities to work together, opportunities to get a deal done, opportunities to grow, right? Because that's the question you're asking. That's the whole thing about gratitude, right? Because what's wrong is always there. That's always what's right. So most of the time we're asking, we're just built like this, evolutionary, right? Like to go like, what's wrong? What's going to happen? What's the thing? But when you go, what's right?
No. So what's that quote? If you think you can, or you think you can't,
you're right. Yeah. And record.
Yeah. Well, that's yeah.
And do it with your kids, right? Because like, I think I heard you guys say you kind of have maybe younger kids, right? And sometimes they're just always doing stuff, right? Like, they're always being noisy, or always, kind of acting up a little bit or whatever. And sometimes they're just like, man, why do they always do this, this, and this? And if you just switch the question and go, what are they doing right? What are they awesome at? What are they excelling at? All of a sudden you'll start seeing that everywhere versus like the misbehavior, the loudness. I mean, that's still there. It's not like you deny reality, right? But it's a matter of how you're focused. Yeah. Because whatever you focus on expands. We become what we give our attention to. And so like, what do we give our attention to every day? And if you don't like the answers, change the question. Like what? And then all of a sudden you start seeing the things that you want to see, and you're training your mind to see those things, not to see, not to focus in on. Because then what you focus on becomes how you feel, and that creates the state of mind and the state of body and being that you have, right? And that's part of why people don't change, like when you talk about identity. I have a kind of a one-page graphic I do. Is like, story, state, strategy, right? Story is your identity. It's the story we tell ourselves about ourselves. So what story are you telling yourself about yourself? And a lot of that is like limiting beliefs. And it's why a lot of people don't change, or they get initial change because they change their behaviors or it's up level thing. But your identity, the strongest force in human personality, is for us to act in concert with who we believe ourselves to be. Right. And so, like when you were playing ball, like part of your identity was like, I'm this kind of pitcher. I play baseball. Like I do this kind of stuff. And you act in concert with that. And it's like a thermostat. So as soon as you start to kind of get above your station or whatever, like the AC pops on, goes, no, you shouldn't do that. That's not you, whatever. It's why, you see people that struggle with their weight, right? They will lose a good bit of weight and then they put it back on. I don't know what the stats are, probably 90%, right? And the reason is because like they were able to change their eating and exercise for a little while, but they didn't change the story. In their mind, they're still hearing other people say and telling themselves, I'm, a fat slob, a loser who eats too much and never going to get this and that. And because they keep telling themselves that story, then they eventually revert to that mean, right? They revert back to that story. So what I like to help people change. If you want to change your life, change your story. As you change your story, then you can do things to change your state. And then your strategy is kind of this, like, your compelling vision, your North Star, the thing that you're excited about going toward. But if you try to just do behavior modification, you can make some improvements and things like that. But you got to start seeing yourself. So I think a lot of times, like even goal setting, I think about goals, not just, we always think about it's this place we're going to get here. But I try to think about them and help people think goals are a place to come from as much as they are a place to get to. Because like if your goal is to, I don't know, do $1 million of revenue by the end of the year, a lot of times you finally hit the goal on, December the 22nd, right? And so it's like you feel like a failure all year long because you are, short of the goal. But when it's a place to come from, you're going, okay, who would I need to be today? How would I need to act? What would my priorities be if I was the kind of guy that was going to generate $1 million in my business? Or if I want to become the COO of my company. And instead of going like, just how do I, somewhere I'm trying to get, I'm always like, oh, but I'm still just the vice president or whatever. You go, who would I have to be? How would I have to act? What would I have to prioritize? How would I need to show up in this meeting? How would I need to dress? Whatever it is, to be the person who is already acting out and becoming the person who is capable of being COO, because you already changed your mindset and your identity, right? And then you start to act in concert with that. Then the actions start to follow that identity, and then people go, "Wow, this girl is, amazing." They're like kicking ass, and it's totally different deal. So, and then there's a lot of satisfaction in that, right? Because even though you're not yet at the $1 million or the role you're in or whatever, you are acting in concert with who you believe and want yourself to be. And so I talk about creating our future self, right? Because we have to think about that, because literally every action we take, every decision we make is a vote for our future self, for your future self. So, whatever we take in, whatever activity we participate in, whatever we say to someone, whatever that is, we're making a vote for our future self. We're turning ourselves just a little bit more and more into the kind of person. And that's why, like, you see people like tell a little lie. I just watch a bunch of the Theranos stuff again. I don't know, like we got interested in it. And
Oh, dude, yeah, I love that. I think it was on Hulu. It was like it was docudrama basically on it.
oh, so bad. And dude, there's two of them. So one is the docudrama one, which we watched first, right? And I was like, man, they had embellished like a lot, which is fine. Like that's Hollywood. It was incredibly compelling, right? But I was like, it couldn't happen that way. But there's an actual documentary.
Okay.
And it literally, like all that shit, like what the meetings where they did the craziest stuff, and it all went down that way. Like it was, and if anything, they underplayed it.
Really?
Yeah. And I was like, holy shit, this is
It was a real, and they got some serious, like donors from that. Like, I can't remember who it was, but there was like some like huge names that put a lot of money into that thing and for nothing.
it was like George Shultz, who
Yeah.
and the Secretary of State, right? The guy that like next to Reagan credited into the Cold War. Like, I mean, he was fully bought in, like blew up his relationship with his grandson to keep supporting her. And, but it's like, like you tell, like a little lie, right? Or you pretend to know something you don't know, whatever. It becomes a little bit easier to do it next time, a little bit easier to do a bigger one, a little bit. And then you're then you're covering tracks. Then you're, and before you know it, you went from telling a lie to telling a few lies to becoming a liar. Right. And then virtue works the opposite way. Right. It's like we practice those habits, like telling your, creating a new story for yourself and then living that out. Like I said, becoming and being that person who you believe you want, you want to be. Like, how would a person that wants to do this thing, how would they show up today? What would they do? What
Act as if. That's what I've heard. I've heard someone say that before. Act as if you are this person. The whole fake of it, or you make it kind of things. Or the analogy I've heard before is if your life's a movie, pretend that you're the main character of this movie. What would he do? If you were the hero of this movie of your life that is this movie, what would you do? And live that way.
So brilliant. It's exactly right. Because actually, the people said like, "Oh man, like you helped with this," and I'm go like, "Dude, I'm not a guru. Nobody's mad. If I had magic dust, like I mean, hell, that'd be great, right? But no, like you have the answers. You have the capability. Yes, I'm helping like dig deep and guide there and those kinds of things. But it all ends up coming, from you because it's just getting drawn out of you in a different way. And, that's one of the most rewarding things, seeing, but for me, one of the big aspects of success for me is, how successful are the people that my clients, people I work with, people I've led in the past, like how successful are they? What, so my goal is not to make more followers, but more leaders. Right. And, I'm less concerned with being the best ever than I am with like helping make the best ever. Right. Like I'd be happy if, 100 people that I had led and worked with became way better leaders than me. Right. That to me, that's what I want to see. That's the kind of thing that gets me up in the morning, gets me excited and those kinds of things. But yeah, that idea of, what that somebody called it like the expert rule. Like just think about the expert, like in that field, whatever it is that you can go like, what would they do? And I would do it with me because, sometimes like when I'm like, I don't, in my mind, like I'm nobody special, but like when you're paying a lot of money to this person to be your executive coach or consultant, whatever you think they are, whatever. And I go, okay, do a WWJD with like, cause for whatever reason you think I know so much better than you what to do. Right. And they'll say, yeah, something thought like, what would Jeremy do in the situation? And truth is, I probably would have screwed it up, but in their mind, I would have done the smartest thing ever. Right. And so what they end up coming up with in their own is the smartest thing ever. And they're like, oh, so I did this, then it worked, like blah, 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 because you are putting those things like into action. And some people act like that's, they're like, well, that's not authentic and that kind of stuff. Well, it's only not authentic if you are trying to, put forth an image and stroke your ego and do things like that. It's not inauthentic when you're saying, I am practicing at, you know what I mean? Like when you first started playing ball or you started jujitsu and like other stuff like that, like you put yourself out there, right? Like you have to, and you weren't as good at it at first, right? But you had a zeal for practicing to be a major league baseball player. Like, and nobody came and was like, dude, when you're 16 was like, yeah, you're a faker, you're inauthentic because you talk about major league, but you're not that good yet. You're like, no, well, yeah, but I'm acting as if I'm going to be that person. And that's a virtuous practice. Like all human behavior is addictive, whatever it is we're doing, whether it's, late at bed sleeping, watching Netflix, scrolling social media, writing, practice, whatever it is. Like everything is, it's addictive. So like I said, everything we do, decision we make, action we take, devote for that future self. And so ask yourself, like, is this thing I'm about to do, or this decision or this thing I'm about to say, is that reflective of the person I want to be in the future? And the more you're asking yourself that question, the more you start making the kind of decisions that future you would make.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's great. Well, but before we started recording, we were talking a little bit. You're a real estate investor. Let's talk a little bit about your real estate portfolio. You said you got some vacation rentals and stuff like that, right?
Yeah. My wife and I do a little bit of that. We I was telling you, we don't have we don't own apartments and like houses or long term lease. Everything's short term vacation rental. So that and she has been like the driver of that. Amazing. Like she's designed these houses and condo. I mean, she's done an unbelievable job. But so we've got, a place in Whistler, a place in Breckenridge, a place in Vancouver, a place in Cabo, and things like that. And so we try to set it up in a way that is, a property that is going to appreciate in value. Obviously, like you want, your appreciation on your investment, your equity. But where the rental or the vacation income is going to, honestly break even is fine, but we looked at, try to make X amount, X percent. And so we make money off the investment properties. And then of course we get, like, we're going next week to spring break, taking our kids up skiing at Whistler. And so you'll get to use them and enjoy these properties. And then, sometimes give them away to friends and things like that too. And she likes to put them in charity auctions and stuff like that. And I'm like, all right, but we don't really give away so many of these days, especially like in some of that higher end properties, because it's like these things, it's a big note on it. It's a big number. Yeah. And then, the thing, and part of the thing about, Canada too, is like when you're, Canada is just like crazy regulation, taxes, whatever. And then when you're trying to also do that plus your management fee, plus like pay Canadian taxes, and then you have to pay foreign tax to import, bring it to you. I mean, so like that's a little more complicated, but it works. Yeah, the first one was Vancouver because my wife's actually from there, and so that was the first was condo downtown, like and again, like she pretty much did everything and like doubled or tripled in value over maybe 8 years, and so I watched her as a little bit, rented for a while, and then went from there to a different place like Breckenridge, and then we started with like a 2-bedroom there in a really cool place, a ski in, ski out, you know what I mean? So like you just like walk right out, pick your skis up, doing go, and then upgraded after maybe 5-6 years to a 4-bedroom, a larger place, right? And so like now, like we went up, we west, we got Christmas and the New Year's, and we took a bunch of friends and just had a blast skiing and stuff like that. But then has a higher rental value, and it's more on the luxury end, stuff like that. So that's been really, really cool, really fun. But she, not again, I just have to credit her because she is the one who, man, she sources these things. She like designed some things we bought into, some things we built, and like she just designs them. And I mean, she didn't go to school for that, like that, but like she's just amazing at it.
That's awesome. It's awesome. Well, and you get some unique locations. Just like when we're talking to people, like, oh yeah, I've got places down in Florida or at the lake or things like that. But what made you decide on Colorado, Vancouver, Cabo? What took you to those areas?
Yeah. So one, I said like she's from Vancouver, right? So that for like Vancouver, and then Whistler, which is like 2 hours up from Vancouver. Last time we were there, I got to and she scheduled this for me too. Like, they had the Winter Olympics in Vancouver. So they kept their bobsled run, which is, up the mountain, like up in Whistler. I go through all the ski, the ski. Only about half.
Farm Whistler was in Colorado.
So did I, until you said that.
No, it's in British Columbia. That's what there. And it's great. Like, if you've been to Vancouver before,
No, I heard it's awesome.
oh, Vancouver is incredible. Yeah. She, showed me all around and whatever. And then we got a house there, it's really in Surrey, which is like,
Is that like an island or like a peninsula? Where that's
well, it's right on the ocean, you know, so it's just, I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. You know, I mean, like 1 year in the Northwest, so it's kind of the same, but, the house we have there is in Surrey, which is like right across. I mean, you can see the U.S. from the balcony or whatever and the ocean. And then, but the place of Whistler is, actually a unit we own in the Four Seasons. So the Four Seasons has in vacation, like you can own,
it's got
properties and you're only allowed to actually reserve it like 30 days a year or whatever, because they want it, making sure they have like openings for guests and stuff like that. But, you know, it's awesome because it's in the Four Seasons, like, which is top notch. And then of course they handle everything and charge you a hefty price, but it's worth it, in that sense. But, so that's kind of how we got there. And then like loving to ski, Colorado, what a place you could go and fly in quickly and then get in, get out. And so that led to, you know, Breckenridge. And then we're like, we also want, you know, nice warm beach kind of stuff. So we got another
Spectrum, yeah.
yeah, we kind of think about in terms of like where places we want to go, where we want to visit, where we want to spend time, we want to take our kids, and we kind of really, I mean, we take some, like we just took a trip to, you know, Vegas together, whatever, just the two of us, but most of our stuff, like we want our kids with us, like we want to take them along, and then we actually talk to them about what we're doing, why do we buy this, like what, you know, we sit down and even show them high level, like here's the income, here's what it costs to do this, right? Like I have all these games I create too. Like one day I brought like my paycheck home, all in like $1 and $5 bills, right? Like, and spread out so it looks like all this money on the table, whatever, you know. And it's like, okay, now here's your bill, here's your mortgage, here's your this, right? You start taking this money away, right? And we did that. I created a game for like how the natural debt works and like, I mean, anyway, I love doing that kind of stuff, but we want to try to include them in those things because, that's just part of, you know, them growing up. It's still like, now I'm trying to force them to be like, you got to get into this and do this, but like, we want them to understand. Yeah. Like, oh,
How old are they?
they range from 9 to 19.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So my oldest is,
Right? You 5?
yeah, 5. Yeah. My oldest is a freshman at Baylor. Very cheap school, very in the Greek. It's, you know, they think very highly of their education process there. But yeah, he's doing good. So it's all the way from, you know, 9 to 19 and, they're all, it's crazy just how unique they are in their own ways, but it's a blast. And it's like such a great age because they're not at, you know, what old stuff at college, but the other one from 16 to 9, they're not like, there's not in that stage, like, too cool for school and like, oh, my parent. I mean, you know, we embarrass them. I feel like it's part of my job as a dad to maybe embarrass them a little bit, right? It's just character building, yeah. And but you know, it's just a sweet spot because they're all independent. Like we way past the diapers and like feedings and all that kind of stuff, you know. And which it has, I loved every stage, but this is a cool one. Like last night, we just sitting around the dinner table and talking about politics and political philosophy and stuff like that. And my daughter was like, well, what really is communism, you know? And like we had like this dinner, you know, with 13-year-olds and a bit bigger 9-year-olds, like about it. And I really try hard because I think part of like what is so toxic in our political debates or discussion now is that I believe we should really be teaching and help people form their political philosophy and their political principles before they get attached to people and parties.
Yes.
And because now it's just reactive. It's like, this happened, this decision, this, I hate this, I don't like that person, or they're taking away this or ruining that or whatever. And it's like, well, let's go back to the fundamentals first and say, what is government actually for? How is our government formed? What is it for? And I really try hard to be, you know, a little bit Socratic because like I want them to form their own opinions. Obviously I want to inform them as well, but I don't want to just be like, oh, here's what you believe, and that's the other stuff's dumb, and
I'm this, so you're this too.
Right. So I try to push them and go like, hey, what do you think government's for? What's the purpose of government? Like, the Supreme Court just decided this. You don't like that decision, but is it because you personally disagree with the thing that's going to happen, or because you believe that the Constitution actually allows for that thing and they're wrong about the Constitution, right? Like, anyway, so I just like those kind of things. But so we're just that fun segment where we get to have, and believe me, we don't sit around. I don't want to give you this false impression. Like, yeah, we sit around and talk political philosophy, and we're reading Plato every night at the dinner table. Like, a lot of times it's highs and lows, or what I call happies and crappies. A lot of times it's jokes that we're showing each other videos. Like, my daughters love to make videos of themselves doing. They rap songs up about all of us. So like, they're what.
So they're the ones we need on here, right?
Yeah. Well, they're actually not good rappers, but they create some good lyrics and really good dances and videos, and they captured it pretty well. And
That's scary. Oh man. Well, this has been great having you on, Jeremy. I've really enjoyed this conversation. Is there anything else you wanted to bring out that we didn't get to?
Man, I can think of lots of things, but I think we've had a great conversation. I just really enjoyed getting to meet you guys, hear a little bit more about, what you're doing. I think, I wanted even to hear a little bit more about, what you guys are hoping for this podcast and the future of it and how it's going to influence people and the big, kind of why that you guys have, right? I know we talked a lot, or I've heard a lot here and everything about, people developing their purpose. And I think that's important because, Viktor Frankl said he was the guy who wrote Answers for Meaning, which I think maybe one of the greatest books of the 20th century. Yeah.
Probably like the third person that's right, wouldn't it? Yeah, we need to read that way. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. I mean, he's an Austrian Jew, right? Who, what does the Holocaust search is what? Man's search for meaning. He says, one of the great things he says in there is, he goes, the one thing you can never take from me. And this is a man that he had everything. He had just finished his like magnum opus. He was a doctor, psychiatrist, and they took it, tore it to pieces, right? He lost his wife and kids. Of course, it took every bit of property, money, or thing. Then the degree, suffragette. And he goes, the one thing the one thing no one can ever take from me.
They do body now, yeah.
There is. There you're lit. Hey, you just pulled it out for you. He says, the one thing you can never take from me is how I choose to respond to what you do. That you take everything else, right? But you cannot change the way I choose to respond to what you do. And so, like, part of that is what kept him going. And there's like, you always have some choice. You always have some agency, in that. But that actually wasn't the quote I was going to bring up. But that's just one of the ones that like blows me away. Every time I'm like, complaining about stuff or whatever, I'm like, this dude was like, shit. Hey, you know what? I'm still
Better than right.
yeah. In that sense, but the big thing I was going to say, he said, is like, if you have a big enough why, you can overcome and endure virtually any how. So when you have that compelling vision, a why, something that is like so damn important for you, then you can overcome any how, whatever it takes to get there, right? So the question is, do I have a big enough why? Do I have a big enough, meaning and purpose? Anyway, I think that came out of me just asking you guys a little bit about,
Oh yeah, no, I mean, why did we start this podcast and kind of why we decided to do this was, it kind of stemmed from our buddy who produces the show for us. He was I was meeting up with him once or twice a week, and we'd sit here and we'd film, we call it talking head content when it was just primarily like real estate stuff. It was like, oh, what do you want to talk about today? And, I'd come up with like a little script and like I'd end up like reading off the script, but it always kind of sounded like I was reading from a script. And then eventually it turned into him just like asking me a question, and then I just riff on it for a few minutes, and then he'd clip out the best parts, and there was a video. And then, he had a podcast and I was a guest on it, and I'm just a huge fan and consumer of podcasts. And, I was like, man, maybe we should, instead of getting together once or twice a week and just spending an hour just making these little videos, like, why don't we just do a podcast? And then I was like, well, I don't know if I want to just take on this whole venture by myself. So Pat and I were, we were already kind of creating some content together. We're making these funny little silly skit videos. Like we had one where he dressed up as Santa and I was an elf, and we brought some people in and they're like sat on his lap and like, oh, Christmas, I want a 3-bedroom 2-bath. And, I think, we'd like, it was like all real estate stuff. And Pat and I have always been good friends, and, we had a lot in common, both athletes, both dads. And, we got together and we're like, okay, what do we want to do? What do we want this podcast to be about? And it turned into, stuff that we like to, something not something that we would say we're absolute experts on, but like something that we have a lot to say about is manhood, fatherhood, entrepreneurship, all things that we're kind of really involved in. And we have a pretty good network of people that we've gotten to know. And it's like, man, I just love to have the opportunity to come in here, sit across the table from someone and just have a conversation for an hour and a half and really get to learn. Cause I mean, that's one of the best things I've gotten out of this is I've gotten to sit down with, over 100 people at this point and just have great conversations and learn. Like I feel like I'm a completely different person today than I was a year ago, from doing this. And it's kind of like a little bit of therapy too. And sometimes you just get some stuff off your chest and, sometimes you forget people are listening and it's great. And, it's kind of why we did it.
Yeah. What's one of the things that a guest has said on here that has had like a major impact on you guys? Like that really was like, man, or I don't know if it's revelatory or if it.
I mean, there's, now I was going to end to that. I mean, like, I feel like I've learned something from every guest that we had on. So it's hard to pinpoint like one specific thing, but like taking away from today is, focusing on leadership and putting myself in that vision of a leader and seeing myself as a leader and thinking about what that leader does and continue to move forward with it and improve on where I'm already at in terms of where I see myself as a leader currently and revisioning that and growing on that aspect of leadership. We go back, I mean, shoot, it's just a lot of the same stuff though that we see that comes up is, the why behind it, having a strong why. Everyone that we've had on here, like you just mentioned, having a very strong why. And, that's one thing that my coach that I've had for years, that was the very first thing we sat down and talked about. We spent a whole first couple of coaching calls on getting to that why. And it was just him asking like, hey, tell me about yourself and, what do you think your why is? And I'm saying, he goes, but why do you think that? And then I go, why do you think that? Why? He just kept asking me why until we finally got to the root of it. But ultimately, like, that's the biggest thing is that why. And it changes. I mean, it does. It's like when I first got in the business prior to kids, like my why was different than what it is now. Now it's all about my kids and making sure I'm showing them what it's like to be a man, be successful. And it's great that we have this here that as we get older and all that, and as my kids get older, that this is something that they come back on and see like all the things that have been said and talked about and things that they can pick up and learn from it. It's been huge. Like, I love it.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about that a couple episodes ago. It's like if it's like a time capsule, it'd be really cool if I could look back and, see a couple 100 hours of my dad talking when he was in his early to mid 30s, like that'd be a pretty cool thing to go back and see. And, it's like my boys will be able to do that, and if it's like, God forbid something happened to me, it's like, boom, you got several 100 episodes to go watch your dad and, kind of learn about who he was, what he was all about, what he thought, about this or that.
I didn't think about that, but later, man, like that makes me want to start a podcast. Yeah, just out of that. Yeah. And if you guys run into John Knightsey around here, he's not actually a member of the club, but he's always here because he's friends with Matt and different people. But he does a bunch of different stuff. But one of the things he started doing is like legacy videos for families. And so, usually like the adult kids are driving away, but like we want mom and dad to sit down. Like he has very high production value and all that kind of stuff. He used to be a news anchor and everything like that. So he interviews them and draws them out where, but you get like this, like they do a couple, like they do a 10-minute one, a 30-minute one, hour or something like that. But like, so you get to give your kids, your grandkids, whatever, like that video. Yeah. That video of them talking about like their values and what it was that drove them, how they met and all that kind of stuff. And, I was hanging out with some friends, the other day, and their mother-in-law was over, and like she's super quiet. They're like, oh, she never talks to blah blah blah. And I was like, sit down and talk to her, man. Yeah. And I just asked her a couple questions, like, well, how did you meet your husband? Whatever. Like all of a sudden, like she starts telling these stories, and like the family is like, we'd never heard a story before. I'm like, yeah. Did you ask? Yeah, like. Again, it's curiosity. It's not like I wasn't going like, oh, can I get some things out of her? I just was like curious. I don't know. Yeah, I'm interested because she's 82 years old or whatever. So she's got something to teach me. I'm like, how did you meet this? What was this like? I don't know.
Let's think of all the things that she's lived through.
Yeah.
Like
crazy.
Cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. Well, and Jeremy, like I said, it was great having you on, man. This has been a real joy. So before we get you out of here,
I'd like to end it with one last question. Play a little game called the Tombstone Game. Here lies Jeremy. Once it's in your tombstone. What would you like to say?
I bet says, those who knew him best loved him most. It's beautiful. It's awesome. I think that would be pretty good. That would be fun, faith, and stammer. Say yeah, that's good. But I'll take you to what. But that's an important question. I'm like, yeah, so I think that's a really good question.
Yeah, we have a book club.
right, we've been at about it last
Yeah, the last 2 months, but last year we read a book a month and then we recorded an episode on it.
Victor Frankl should be an open
But yeah, we were at this book that claimed to be the new How to Make Friends and Influence People book. And it wasn't. It was bad.
It was like of all the ones we read last year, by far our least favorite.
Yeah, least favorite by far. But we did get one thing out of it.
The Tombstone Game.
Yeah, so that's cool. It's cool. Sorry, I always get one thing. Like we can always get something.
Always. Yes. We end every episode with that question.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Ever since we read that book. So yeah, we're 100 plus episodes now playing the Tombstone Game.
Yeah. The only other thing I want is after we turn off, I want you to share with me one jujitsu move without seriously injuring you.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you haven't clicked that subscribe button for us yet, please do so. That would help us out a ton. Click that like button as well and comment what you thought below, and we'll see you next time.